said sorry about that, folks. Give us some time for hopefully some people to rock on in. Welcome to my Tuesday night ramble. I have to give a huge shout out thanks to people today who, for me to be able to do this stream live on my Aussie Local Live channel, I had to get over 100 subscribers. And I know that's like, baby steps. I get that. But that's what this is all about. It's all baby steps, just getting there bit by bit. And actually, I found out that more people are seeing what I'm doing than I actually know, because I have so many people coming up and saying they've been watching my rants, they've been watching my interviews, and every gig there's pretty much someone saying something, but doesn't reflect in the figures I see. So people are obviously sharing it and helping things get out there. So thank you very much for that. Didn't do anything last week. I had to be in Brizzy last week, away from my little studio setup here. I had a great time down there with my lads. Really enjoyed that and had lots of gigs on, which was good. I was paying the bills. Oh, what's going on? Where have I gone? There I am. I'm back again. Bada bing, bada boom. If you are watching this, please send me just a chat message. It comes up in my chat thing here, and I'd love to know who's watching. That would be really cool. I've got some really interesting interviews I'm going to be pre-recording over the coming week. I'm very excited about them all, but yeah, it's not always easy getting things lined up. It takes a bit of time, and I'm trying to get it regularly that I do every Tuesday night a ramble. Where tonight I'm going to, first of all, got a message I'd like to send out there for everybody. Secondly, I'm going to talk a little bit about how my China journey started, because it was a really pretty amazing thing. And I'll share a bit of that. So I do that on Tuesday nights occasionally. And look, maybe some of the people who watch tonight, I might try and grab someone on for a chat if that's okay. So I do that on a Tuesday. Then later in the week, I always try and put out a proper interview where I talk to someone. Could be someone well known, someone not well known, just someone with a story. I just want to capture Aussie stories. That's my thing at the end of the day. We have so many great Aussie stories going on. Benno Rogers, how are you, buddy? You're eating dinner with the kids. That is great. I hope you teach them to eat more. What's the word? I don't want to be totally rude. I'm sure the etiquette that you, as a production person and the lead singer of a band called Awaken the Hate, have a different type of maybe eating etiquette than your kids may. I'm being rude, I'm sorry. We've been grabbing Benno on for a chat sometime soon. Just have to make sure that there's nothing controversial that we talk about. That's another story for another time. Hang on, I've got to turn the light on here. Get my complexion as good as possible. Very blue. Blue by you. So, how's everyone's week been? What a crazy time we live in. I'm a person who I love following like real podcasts, not like my little muck. And man, America is just such a sideshow at the moment. I have American friends who I love dearly, and we've got so much culture music culture and film culture out of America. I'm not going to equate their culture to other civilizations, but but we certainly got a lot from America. But what a crazy time! I'm really not sure we should be having such a reliance on our relationship with America. It seems from one administration to the next, you never really know what they stand for these days. And we do live in Asia. I'm sure they will like us. They're, from a government point of view, when they need us, they've shown that they don't really stand by relationships properly these days. But they are great fodder for podcasts. So I'm a person who, for decades now, my job has normally finished around 2 or 3 in the morning. So for me getting to bed, 1 o'clock in the morning, but me getting to bed around 2 or 3 is pretty standard. Which means I, for decades, tended to wake up about 9, 10. Then you get your first hour going, and my day rate really doesn't kick off till midday. And I tend to work from like midday to midnight, doing what I do. So these days I wake up maybe 9:30, 10, and my first hour or so just laying in bed watching video stuff from podcasts I love in America. America is just the greatest TV drama, comedy / insane asylum every day. But yeah, I maybe watch too many podcasts, but I certainly don't watch TV news to get what's going on around the world. That's just such a joke. But there are some really good podcasts out there. So that's probably the exciting thing about our time is that there are, so not like mine, which is just random, but there are some great podcasts going on. Now, I need to thank people for allowing me to do this stream tonight. So I have my Facebook channel, Aussie Local and Live. I want to grow it. I haven't really focused on how you do that. I've just been doing my thing. And I want to live stream on this channel in the past, and I haven't been able to. I've had to live stream on my Nick Phillips music channel, which is not what the podcast is about. That's for my music. My podcast is on Aussie Local and Live. To be able to live stream, I had to get to 100 people following me. I know it sounds like a small amount, but I hadn't been focused on it really. And I put out a couple of messages over the last week or so about, asking people to follow me so that this stream could go live on Aussie Local and Live. And we've got up to well over 100 followers. So thank you very much, people, for doing that. I really do appreciate you doing that. Now, eventually, I want to move everything to my YouTube channel because things get deleted when you live stream on Facebook after a while. They stay on YouTube. YouTube is much more better set up for longer form chats, which is what I try and do with my interviews. And YouTube's just Facebook is more about little posts you put up and showing what you're eating for dinner or what your family's doing and that type of stuff. They encourage those posts. Longer chats, not so much. So I will eventually try and move things over to YouTube. But for now, I'm streaming on my Aussie Local and Live Facebook page, my Nick Phillips music page. I'll keep doing that for a bit. And my Aussie Local and Live YouTube channel. Now, if you do get a chance, please go over to my Aussie Local and Live YouTube channel. That would be great. Eventually, that's where I want to move everything. Now, the first thing I want to ask everybody is, and I'm still working out how to share screens properly from, it seems I can, okay, here's my problem. I have a Mac, MacBook Air. Safari is the main platform I stream on there, and everything seems to work in general, except I really can't figure out on Safari how to share other windows I have. So I'm still trying to work that out. When I go to Chrome, I can share other windows, but Chrome won't let me use the camera I'm using for some reason. So I'm sure these issues are just me being a technical idiot. I'm working through that. I wanted to share this page tonight, but I couldn't figure out how to do it. But I had a great time today catching up with a mate of mine, Alec Dumaji. Alec, I met Alec when he was the music director at 98.9 FM in Brisbane. country music station with an Indigenous slant to it all. And we became good friends. And look, Alex had a roller coaster ride. He's been caught up in the mob politics that happens around the Indigenous stuff and all that. But he's had a heart. He's been sick lately. He caught a thing called yeah. People who are jumping on, if you see him when I'm talking, the volume's okay, all that stuff. Please send me a message in comments because I see the comments and I'd love to see that you're listening and who's listening. But anyway, Alec got a thing called, which appears to be, they did lots of blood tests on him, which he was paranoid about what tests are doing. Um, a thing called Q fever, which seems to come about by he thinks he has a gym in a shed out back, and there are possums in the roof, and there's something he's caught that made him really sick for a while, and he's couldn't work for quite a while and has been struggling. And his daughter, Brooklyn, has set up a GoFundMe to just help Alec and his family get through this initial time. Now, I don't know how to share this page, so I'm going to put it in as a link in the comments later on. If you would like to help out, please do that. For now, I'm going to read you what Brooklyn said on the page. Hello, my name is Brooklyn, and I'm reaching out for help and support. For my dad, little sisters, and stepmom as he recovers from Q fever. Over the past few weeks, my family's world has been turned upside down. My dad has been extremely unwell after being diagnosed with Q fever, a serious and often debilitating illness. What began as flu like symptoms quickly worsened, leaving him very unwell and unable to work. He has since been hospitalized and now is facing a long and uncertain recovery, which may take 6 to 12 months. Q fever can have a significant impact on the body, causing ongoing fatigue, pain, and complications that make returning to physical work very difficult. Right now, his focus needs to be on rest and recovery. This situation has placed enormous strain on him and our family, emotionally, physically, and financially. With his income suddenly gone, they are struggling to cover essential living expenses, including mortgage repayments, household bills, food and everyday necessities, medical and recovery related costs. As his daughter, it is incredibly hard to watch my dad and family carry this stress while trying to navigate such an uncertain time. They are doing everything they can, but right now they need support to stay afloat. If you are able to donate, no matter the amount, it would mean more than words can express. If you're unable to give financially, sharing this page is another meaningful way to help. We are deeply grateful for the kindness, care, and community surrounding us. Your support will help ease some of the pressure so my dad can focus on healing and our family can remain safe and supported while they move through this season. Thank you for taking this time to read this, for caring, and for standing with us. With heartfelt thanks. Brooklyn, that is awesome. I haven't met you, know your dad and your stepmom really well, but they're wonderful words, and I would love to be helping your family. Message from Donna McCallum. Q fever was prevalent in the meat works up here in Townsville in my younger days. Yeah, it's still around, and I didn't realize it was so serious. And Donna, great to hear from you. Thanks for sending me a message. Awesome to hear from you. Um, Another good friend way up there in Townsville these days. But I will post the link in the comments when I finish this for Alex's, for Brooklyn's GoFundMe site. If you can help that family, that would be awesome. I got to catch up with Alec today, and we had a good chat about a few things and things moving forward and things I would love to be involved to help them with. And the first thing was to mention their situation on air. I know a lot of friends Alec has. Hang on. Ticklish throat, too many gigs on the weekend. But I will be sharing that. Obviously, you guys are seeing this live. Hope it sounds okay. Any issues with the sound, let me know. So I've got some really cool pre-recorded interviews I'm going to be posting over the next couple of weeks. But also, I want to put out there if you know someone who has a good story, a local story, um, I would love to talk to as many people around Queensland first and then Australia as I can about regional local stories. I want to catch up with people who know information about their local town, some of the stories. It could be a personality who maybe was a local footy coach who, kind of raised half the town during their time. Um, or a local publican in town who's heard a million and one stories, or just stuff that we don't normally get to hear about. Hang on, gotta make another change. Getting there. Yes, this is a highly professional outfit, ladies and gentlemen. You're watching me and my producers, and technical staff. Tend to get a lot of things wrong, but I'm getting there slowly. And Tuesday night ramble is not about me putting on a big polished thing. I just want to chat. Now, any people in the chats who would like to come on and have a chat, all you need to do is have your iPhone, your computer ready. Send me a message. I can send you a link, probably via your email address, so everyone else doesn't see the link, and we can have a chat. Tuesday nights, I'm doing nothing. I'd either be sitting there watching telly, maybe working on writing a song, which I am trying to write a new album at the moment. But Tuesday nights, I'm still getting over like gigs from the weekend, driving back up the hill here, catching up, having a whiskey along the way. Cheers, by the way. It'd be nice. Do you have too many whiskeys while you're talking, Nick? No. If you knew my background, there is impossible to have too many whiskeys. That just doesn't happen. Especially after 10 years of working in China, which leads me to one of the things I'm going to talk about tonight. I had probably the most amazing China journey that most Westerners would never have experienced what I got to experience. China was never on my radar at all. Before I went to China, what I knew about China was what we all knew. You see these pictures of the Mao suits and people riding on bicycles and all the things we were told about the government, how it works. And look, China's gone through some horrific things. It was going back, hundreds of years ago, one of the most progressive, advanced countries in the world. Went through a big period where, because of inequalities within the country, international countries getting involved, went through some really hard times. To a point where most Chinese people came from rural areas and they were overrun by local lords and local power holders, and it became very difficult for people. And out of that grew their revolution, the Long March, everything that happened, the massive amount of people that got killed through that time. And it's very complex between the Kuomintang and the communists and international influence and what Japan did and everything else. But finally, they emerged into the country they were from 1948, where the communist government did win. The Kuomintang were pushed basically, or they went to Taiwan, which is where Taiwan grows out of. And people talk about two different entities there, but it's all really one China. It's just you've got the ones who won in mainland China and the ones who didn't win in Taiwan. But it is still, as all countries that have said for many years, still the one entity. But anyway, forgetting all the politics, China was never on my radar. I um, I got the chance. Let's go back a bit. I got into full time music in the mid '80s. Became my job, my life. I became quite successful locally. I had songs in the late '80s chart in Queensland in the top 10. I was on a regular on a TV show on Channel 7. I got known really well. And back in those days, we were so lucky in the music industry that we had people like Graham Hutchinson and Greg Shaw, agents like that, who had built up a whole touring network around Queensland where you could literally tour all year, work 5, 6, 7 nights a week with your band, carrying around an 8, 10 ton truck, a 3 man road crew, playing. Okay, during the week you might be playing to half empty rooms, but these rooms held like 1,800 people and 1,200 people in a lot of them. And on the weekends they'd be full. Little towns like Ayr and Ingham, uh, through the Rocky Bundys, Bundaberg. There was just so many venues everywhere. And back in those days, when you were like 18, 19 years of age and you could work on the road and make your living playing music like that, it was brilliant. You learnt your craft so well. You had so much fun. And we had so many great bands out there. Kick forward a bit. It got to early 1990s was when the Pokies came into Queensland. And suddenly, so many hotels and hotel chains in particular went from having entertainment, live music as their main draw card to having poker machines as their main draw card. We lost a lot of venues, we lost a lot of rooms, and you could no longer tour like you could with a band as we had been doing. So the big shift for me was I looked at it and I realized, well, the only way I was going to keep making money was to do solo and duo gigs. So I very much became by the early '90s a solo artist around town. I'd gone to Los Angeles. I'd recorded my first album. I came back and I was selling my first album, Poetry and Beer, my first CD at gigs, and it was healthy. I could work those days up to 5 nights a week doing solo gigs, which was good money, and I could sell CDs. And if you sold even across the year, the independent ones that I made, I could sell maybe 2,000 CDs a year at gigs at $15 a head. So there's an extra 30 grand you could put on top of your earning capacity, which back then was significant. Different story for I had a couple of products come out with Festival Records and with a sub label of BMG. They're a bit different. But you could make a money out of doing all that stuff. Now, by the time it got to 2000s, early 2000s, the amount of gigs doing live music had diminished more, and streaming had started to come in. So suddenly we lost the ability to not, gigs were getting diminished, but we also lost the ability to sell those CDs as that part of our income. And I was probably the early 2000s. I started thinking, well, is there a way forward for me to keep being a musician? Is there a way to keep doing this? And I was really unsure. I wasn't sure. Maybe that was the time I should give up music and walk away. But music wasn't just a job for me. It was my passion. It was what I woke up thinking about every morning. It's what I went to bed thinking about every night. I was just wanting to explore my music every day. It got to around 2006 and I'd recorded my album, Songs from the Fourth Floor. And I was really at a loss to really know what to do. And one of the things that I had done regularly with a band that I worked with, not all the time, but at events, was we would regularly play at the Queensland Parliamentary Ball. Now, this was a night where I think it was in November, where the politicians on both sides and all their staff and everyone else and their donors and all that stuff would get together for a night on the lawn in the old Queensland Parliament House. It was a great night. They'd have crab races and they'd raise money for charity through the raffles on the crab races and other things. And then my band would come on and we'd play. And all the politicians would get up and dance together with their partners. And two clear memories I have of dances was John McKell at the time was, I think, first at that time here. I think he wasn't speaker by then. He was minister for like exports, trade minister, exports, trade minister, and he had played a major part in what was about to come about, and also him and his wife, they would do this graceful dancing, John McKell and his wife, and we'd be playing our songs, and they'd do this awesome graceful dancing, like the way dancing should probably really be done. Then the other couple that stood out for me was the current arts and education minister, John Paul Lambrook. Him and his wife would be up there pogoing, dancing. They were like the rockers. They were the punks. They were doing that. So we were there with all these politicians and everything. We'd play these nights. It was great. In 2006, I'd released my album Songs from the Fourth Floor, and the night of the parliamentary ball was also the Premier's Peter Beattie at the time. It was his birthday. So I went up to Peter and I said, mate, happy birthday. Thanks for having us here. Here's my new CD. I'll give it to you as my birthday gift. Mate, I'm looking at trying to license this into some other areas, other regions. Do you have any advice? He said, well, thank you for the gift and all that. Glad you're here. Leave it with me. About 3 weeks later, I got a call from the government, state government, saying that the Trade Commissioner's office from southern China and Hong Kong wanted an act to go over and perform at the trade and tourism festivals in Guangdong. Would you like to go? I thought, would I like to go? I had long hair, I had the earrings. My thought was, if I go to China and I play my rock music over there, will I get out alive? I had no idea. Guangdong, with the capital city of Guangzhou, I had no idea where it was whatsoever. Even when we got there, I didn't really know where I was. But I said, okay, I don't know if I'm supposed to give up music. I don't know what's going on. But I called up people I knew in the industry and I said, what do you know about the music industry in China? No one could give me an answer. I went back government and said, if we're going over there, what is the situation of the music industry in China? And no one could tell me anything. So I thought, okay, I don't really know what to do with my career. I may as well take a punt and go do a trip to China. I had to take a couple of musicians with me. I took a good mate of mine, Mark Choman, another good mate from high school, Mark Hayden, Mark Hayden. His nickname was Red. He had red hair till it all came out. Red. And we went over and did our first trip to China, not knowing what to expect. I had no idea what I was walking into. What followed ended up being a 10-year journey of about 32 trips to China. I actually achieved in the end some things that no one in the world has achieved. I had a song, I ended up singing in Chinese with Chinese artists and producers. A song go to number 3 on their national radio charts. I became connected to some really, really interesting people that I can honestly prove Austrade and the Queensland State Government didn't connect to. That's a long story, and I'd love to tell that story over numerous episodes over the coming weeks. But I'm going to start just tonight with the beginning, that first trip. So I got that call. I asked the Queensland government, is it safe for me to go over there? They said, yeah, of course, whatever. And Simon Lee was the Trade Commissioner at that time. Now, I'm going to figure out how I do this here. I've never done this before. It works. This was Red. You see Mark Hayden over there. He's a guy without the hair, and Mark Showman mucking around with security guys. So we landed. Before we went to a hotel room, we went to this place where the first performance we were going to be involved with was happening, and they were doing like dress rehearsals and setups. It was at this sports stadium in Guangdong. Now, Guangdong is a city of about 22 million people. I hadn't heard of it. I say Guangzhou. It's in the province of Guangdong, which has about 100 million people in the province and about 22 million live in Guangzhou. Before we got to our hotel, we went to the stadium. That's the that's Mark and Reg just mucking around with some of the security guys there. This was a stage they were setting up in the middle of the sports stadium. We were like, what the hell have we walked into here? And there was something like 2,000 performers involved in the whole presentation of the night. And one stage we were standing down the side, and there was this woman with a bullhorn, got the old bullhorn going on, and she's talking about what people need to do in Chinese. So we had no idea what she was saying, but she was talking and screaming into these people who were like faces of these people who are 3 or 4 feet away from her, and we were just pissing ourselves laughing. It was like, what the hell is going on here? Anyway, that's what we saw as being the setup. Now, this was us in just one of the little town streets in Guangzhou. I think went out to grab a bite to eat during while what was going on. And it was just amazing. This was the night of the performance. Now, the 3 of us were involved in the performance, but because it was just the 3 of us, we didn't know anyone else there. So we didn't get photos of us doing what we did, but we were involved in the performance. Jackie Chan, who came from that region, came out, and he was the big star of the night. He came out on this big float and everything else. And it was just so much fun. It was a presentation like I never. This is our first night in China, and we're involved in a festival like this. And look, I know a lot of people from around the world, from just different countries, go to China for their first experience. They get invited as part of an international thing, and they get involved in these things. This is not unique in any way. A lot of artists have done this type of stuff, but when you're going through it, it is like so special. It is so exhilarating. Yep. My slides stopped working there for a bit. And this is being in amongst the crowd, looking up the stadium and the performances, and there were just thousands of performers involved. What they did have at one stage too, they had these dudes going across, from the roof of the stadium. So you think of like Suncorp Stadium, right? From the roof of one stand to another, had these wires, and they had these dudes going across doing like kung fu dancing while they're going across. And we thought, wow, what technology is involved in doing that? And when we finished our bit, we walked out the back through the tunnel, and we went out back, and we saw these line of Chinese army dudes, or they were in army khakis anyway, all standing there with these ropes they were, or like cables they were holding. It would have been cables, not ropes. Cables they were holding. And you hear someone go, "Hey, hey, 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 hey," and they go, "Run, run, 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 stop. Hey, 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 run, 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 stop." And that was how they were moving these dudes who were doing the kung fu dancing at the top of the stadiums across from it. They had a guy on the radio telling the dudes what to do while they were running with the cables. It was like insane. And we were just, everywhere we turned, we were just blown away by everything. Okay, so that was the stadium. Then we did some other performances, like this one we did in the um, in the Memorial Hall in Guangzhou, and this was the Sun Yat-sen Memorial Hall. Now he was the guy who, before the Communist Party happened, you had these basically warlords around the country running the place. And Sun Yat-sen, he was the guy who created really the first Chinese parliament where people had representation. which led on to what happened with the revolution and everything else. And he's very much revered. And that building, that's the outside of it, is phenomenal. It was just so beautiful. I've got a lot more photos I could show you of the interior and everything else, but it was just amazing being able to play at these type of things. Then this was in Foshan. We did a gig at Foshan, and I haven't got photos of the hall that we did there. We did radio interviews, and all that was hosted by the local radio station. But this was the road crew. These were the boys running the PA and the lights and everything else. And what happened on that trip was that we tended to hang around. You'd have all these other international acts playing as well, and they'd do their thing and they go back to the hotel. We tended to stay around and help the boys pack up, or if there were government okay. So back in, this is 2006. In that time, pretty much every function we worked at, every function that was run in the country, even their big stars, were all backed by a government. It was very much a government controlled industry. Even to the point where you couldn't sell CDs in China back then because they were all like being just pirated on the street. But the way they looked at their industry was artists got paid when they recorded the song, and they would be sponsored by a government company, and they would be paid very handsomely for recording their songs. So when the songs came out, they were like, the government saw that as being free music to the people, that the artists had been paid for when they recorded the song. Different model to what we have, but that's what it was back then. A big change came in 2011 when the government decided to make, it's a story I'll go into later, but they decided to make the arts a central point in the creation of the internet and digital economy in China. It was all part of them raising. They had raised people in the cities in the middle, built their middle class, but they left behind a lot of people in rural sectors. And the way they looked at solving that problem was using it through a lot of digital connection. And a big part of that was by including the arts. And the arts became, well, arts and digital media became one of the 5 pillars of the economic economy. And I'll get into this later because it's something we should really learn about. But this time, everything was much very much government run, and we would hang out at these events, and we would be the last lads drinking there, as you do. And you'd have the government people who'd been running the events. They were exhausted by the end of it. They looked after everyone. They were so nice. And they'd be sitting down to have a drink just to like end up their night. And we were the lads they would hang out with. We were just being friendly. We just wanted to meet people and know what they were going through. And that early experience of just being willing to hang out, be a part of everybody, not act like you're an artist from overseas here in China, look after us. Just wanted to be part of it. Went a long way to the success I had 5 or 6 years later. So anyway, there's a lot more of that story to come. So the boys in Foshan, go to the next photo. Oh, okay. 2006 happened with me, Red, and Mark. I was invited back to the same festival in 2007. They wanted me to come back with a band. It became a bit hard because I had to make some decisions on what type of band we needed, who would work, and everything else. And anyway, came up with a band, and we went back. And this time, they knew me a lot better. They knew who I was. And we got our own tour bus. Here we go, our own tour bus we had. And this time, on the first trip, one of the things I asked was, can I learn a bit about the industry? Can you introduce me to some of the publishing companies, the record companies? Just let me know how it works in China, because no one knew anything. And on the first trip, I got to have a meeting with a company called Pacific Audio and Video. They were a government-run company, and it was the most surreal thing I've ever had. So I lived previously in Los Angeles. I'd met record companies in Sydney and whatever else, and you'd go to meetings in LA or Sydney and whatever, and you'd present your music, and they play your song, and they play like about 15 seconds of it, and switch to the next one, and all that. Thanks for coming along. Here's your tape back. I got to this meeting with Pacific Audio and Video. I didn't know what they were. I kept asking our guide, "Are they a publishing company, record company?" She's like, "Everything, everything." I'm like, "What does everything mean?" So I went in this meeting with the head of the company, and he had my um, songs from the Fourth Floor album blasting really loud in his stereo system. And he's trying to talk while it's blasting. I'm sitting there with the interpreter. I can't remember who else was with me. Probably Marky. I can't remember. But he's trying to talk through our interpreter. And what came through was he loved my music. He thought the Chinese people would love it. And eventually we found out he wanted to release my album in China. And I'm like, woo, what does that mean? I explained we needed a copyright certificate, international copyright certificate to do that. Now, apparently, the one they used at that time, as it was all government run, was a certificate issued out of Sweden or Switzerland. I couldn't clarify at the time which they were talking about. It was some certificate that was issued that no one else in the Western world seemed to know about. So I said, great. I went back home and I contacted the Queensland government. I said, they want to release my album in China, but they need this certificate. What is it? We have no idea what you're talking about, was their response. The Queensland government have no idea. I spoke to people in the music industry here. They had no idea. So 2006, the internet wasn't that advanced, right, guys? You had to do a lot of kind of hunting around. It took me 6 months to figure out what was the certificate they needed. I eventually found it and I got it. I sent it to China. And Pacific Audio and Video, there's a poster there of my, because I think there might be a photo of the whole CD. Oh, no, not that one. I can't come back. That was the album cover they did for my Nick Phillips. Like, instead of songs from the fourth floor, they called the album Postcard, and that was the what they released. Okay, so we come to 2007. We go back. I'm touring with a band this time rather than three-piece. And when I say touring, we were performing around southern China in Guangdong. It was focused on Guangdong province, which, as I said, has a population of 100 million people. So it was a pretty big deal. And we did a number of shows. We did the festival that we did last time. We did some album release shows, which are here, and you can see the band here now. So you got over on the left side of the screen, you got Luke Williams, you got Angie Whiteley singing with me, you got myself, you got Johnny Griffin on drums, Marlon Holden on bass. Now Marlon was obviously has passed away now, so just give a little bit of a tribute to Marlon. Marlon's a great guy. So many people in the industry know Marlon and love him. He was also a member of the Rusty and the Ayers Rockettes. He was good mates and Three Magic Words. He was really good mates with Keith Urban. He was a groomsman for Keith's wedding. And Marlon passed away from a skin cancer thing not that long ago. And then you got Marky Showman over on that side. So that was the band we toured with on this trip. There's my album cover. Here we are doing a YouTube. I'm not YouTube, Tencent, which a UQ thing in China, like their equivalent to YouTube. It was like podcast interview thing, and we did an acoustic performance of what we do, and had the interview, and we did stuff like that. Okay. So what came out of that trip was Postcard actually got a lot of coverage on Guangdong media in southern China. More than I actually knew, and eventually I got hold of how many articles there were about and whatever else, and it created a good thing. So we finished 2007. 2008, I'm invited back to the festival again. But by this time, I'd had a lot more interest from the industry in southern China, in Guangdong. That guy there with the glasses, not me, that's me in the green, the glasses, but the Chinese looking guy with the glasses, DJ Lem, Orange Lem, Lin Yi. He was like a major personality in southern China. He was a TV personality, mainly a radio personality, and also an artist, a singer. And I got introduced to him. We got on well, and he got me on. This is a radio show. We were doing a live radio show from one of the major shopping centers in Guangdong. Um, we became good friends. We did various things together. What photos do I have here? Oh, this thing's playing up. Come on. Oh, there we go. There's part of the audience, but I think there's a photo before that. There we are. We're being cool. He was like such a cool dude. And me there. One of the things we did on this radio show, which was really cool, they had people call in, okay, live call in, and I had my headphones on, and they would play me like famous pop Chinese songs, which I had no idea what the songs were. I had no idea what they were saying. And I was listening to them live in my headphones. And I had to sing along to the songs. And people had to guess what the song was. And guess what? We had about 7 callers come in. And everyone guessed what I was doing. So I'm singing along to songs I don't know, different language, everything else, going, yeah, I don't know. And you're hearing it live. So you got to sing along live. And you're obviously being a bit delayed because you're hearing it and you're trying to follow it. And hey, I did it where they all got it right. So I was pretty proud of that moment. That was really cool, which carried weight moving forward. There's some of the crowd. It doesn't look like much there, but there was actually a lot of people hanging around that shopping centre that night, and they were pretty full on fans, which was great. I didn't know that my song had done that well, but it had. So what happened was a follow up trip in 2008 to China. As I said, I did 32 trips to China, so there were a lot of trips there. The follow up trip, I was in a city called Shenzhen, which is not far from Hong Kong. It was like on the eastern side of China. Beautiful place. Shenzhen's great. While I was there in Sichuan, which is kind of in the Midwest part of China, very mountainous region, they had a massive earthquake where around about, they estimate about 70,000 people got killed, about 350 people were injured, and 500,000 people were homeless. It was a major, major earthquake. And it really affected the country. And I was watching on TV, and you'd see at that time, this is before President Xi, the president was out there with the people walking around with the people, rescue workers. And it was a tragedy that really affected the people across the country. And I had friends from Australia message me saying, "Oh, pass on their best wishes to everyone in China." And I would do that. I'd say, "My friends from Australia want to share their love and their concerns for you." And my friends in China would start crying. It was really emotional. And I ended up writing a song while I was sitting in my hotel room drinking red wine called "Hold the Spirits High." And I've lost the English text of the song. I don't have a copy of it, but the theme of the song was, we share your pain, but those who passed away and everyone else, we encourage you and hold your spirits high. I played that song to some of the people I was working with, and they loved it. And they end up somehow got to Madame Bai, the lady who was the head of Guangdong Media. So she was the head of the major media channels for 100 million people. And artists like DJ Lem, back then, they really couldn't do their own thing. They had government contracts and they had to do they could work under what they were told they were allowed to do. And I was given permission to record that song with a Chinese artist, which became DJ Lem. And so we did. So what happened was we hooked up with some young producers who translated the song into Chinese. And we turned it into a duet between myself and DJ Lem, Lin Yi. And we went into a studio in Guangzhou, Guangdong, about 10 o'clock one evening, not knowing if we could pull this off, but the goal was for me to sing it with Lin Yi in Chinese. So what happened was we had a young guy, Stephen, great, who translated the song. He actually sang the song through in Chinese. By this time, I couldn't speak Chinese, but I had learnt Pinyin, which is like the Russian version of how came out of Russia, where you use English alphabet to make Chinese words. And I'd learnt quite a bit by this time about, how you say, and, the different things about the tonality I could do. I knew what Pinyin version of their, ZH is J, and I knew those things. So we wrote it out in Pinyin. I had Stephen's version in my ears. And we spent a number of hours recording me singing the song in Chinese based on listening to him singing it and me reading the Pinyin version. And we got to the end, and the boys in the control room were like a bit stunned. They were like, "This is really good, Nick." Even my accent apparently was good. Like, it didn't sound like, if you hear like an Asian person trying to sing English when they don't know English, it sounds like an Asian person singing English. Apparently I sounded right with the accent. And I think a lot of that comes down to the fact that my life has always been about hearing tones and hearing sounds and everything else. I was able to match Stephen C, his name was, Stephen's vocals the right way, picking up on the nuances. It's like if we say, what's an example? It's the little things in our language, like the word between best and beast is very beast is very minor, but it's those little minor things that make the difference. And I was able to pick up on those minor things. And so we recorded the song, and it came out great. Lin Yi did his part. It was a really good song. And this got played to the head of media in Guangzhou. And it was 3 days later, they were putting on a live televised concert, raising money for the victims of the earthquake. And they wanted our song to be the feature song of the concert. Now, the catch here was when I'm in the studio and I'm doing it with my headphones on, I'm talking, all that stuff, you got time to get things right or wrong. You can fix things up. But when you're singing it live on TV, you haven't got that time. So I had to learn the song phonetically. I didn't know the words I was saying. I knew the sounds, but I had to learn it phonetically to do live on TV to probably tens or probably tens of millions of people for a fundraising event supporting the victims of the earthquake. I wanted to get right. And at the concert, I knew we had the Trade Commissioner from Queensland was going to be there and other dignitaries. I wanted to really represent us properly. So I literally spent 2 days in the bathtub in the hotel room with red wine beside me, just learning the song. And in my next episode, I will show photos from that concert where we did it, and we got it right. We did it, and we raised a lot of money for the earthquake victims of Sichuan. And that was my first. As far as I know, no other Western artist in the world has done that type of thing. Now, what we did after that to help push it further, we brought Lin Yi, DJ Lem, out to Queensland, and we went to Dickie's Beach on the Sunshine Coast and shot a film clip. Now, here's me getting my makeup done. I'm sorry, I can't remember the makeup lady's name, but she was lovely and really cool. Here is us shooting with Jason Millhouse out on the rocks of Dickie Beach. I'm going to play that video. I'm going to play that video in a moment. But first, before I get to that, I want to mention this guy. You'll see red on the left there. This is from my first trip to China, 2006. This guy was our busboy at the China hotel we stayed at in Guangzhou. His name's Billy. His English name's Billy. I said that? No, your Chinese name, Billy. But I'm sorry about that. But this is Billy. He was a young lad back then, and he was learning English. And he was so nice to us, so good. And I gave him one of my Chinese CDs, gave it to him. Now, that time it was my English CD. That's right, we hadn't released a China one yet. I gave him my songs from the fourth floor. Later in the week, Billy came up to me and said, Mr. Nick, Mr. Nick, Mr. Nick, I've been listening to your CD, learning English off your CD, but the meaning of your words are just amazing. They mean so much to me. I almost cried at that time. As a songwriter, one of the things you want to do is touch people with your songs. You want to make them experience or help them experience what your experience is through the medium of music and song. And it's one thing to do it in Australia where, people know your music, they know your language, all that stuff. But when someone is sitting down there intently listening to your music, trying to learn your language, and then coming back to say that they're so touched by the meaning of your songs, I think that was the greatest compliment I've ever had. In passing, I still keep in touch with Billy. He's gone on, he had senior roles in the hotel chain eventually, as you do in China, work your way up and prove yourself. But these days, he's got a fashion label, which is selling product into Australia. Now, offhand, I don't have the name of that fashion label, but I will get it. And in future episodes, I will share it. And we keep in contact. He's done really well for himself, but he was such an inspiration to me. This first part of my journey, this is 2 years of 8 more years to come. And the rest of the 8 years, I kind of had to do on my own with Chinese contacts. I never took a band back to China. And I had to figure a lot of things out along the way. And I got to, a bit of a spoiler. I had a song go to number 3 in the national radio charts, singing in Chinese with Chinese artists. We'll get to that song later and the story, how that evolved. I became very connected with people who were involved in very high levels of Chinese government. I learnt a lot about China that average Australians have no idea about. Another hand on heart moment. A lot of the stuff we hear is so distorted by American media and Australian media. China is not what Australians expect. I'm not standing here waving the Chinese flag. They have issues, of course, like we have issues, but a fair assessment is nothing that we get told every day in the media. And I want to share some of those stories as I go along. But for now, I'm going to share a film clip that we recorded at Dickey Beach. It's about sharing the love for people who were killed or injured during the earthquake in Sichuan in 2008. It got a lot of coverage in China, more coverage than anything that Queensland Tourism ever put together. And one of the things I will be covering is the failures of our Australian government and Queensland government entities to capitalise on opportunities like I was presenting, and how Australia and Chinese could better communicate and benefit from opportunities. It's another story. I'll also be getting into how what closed my China journey was not an issue on the China side, but people in Australia who were assholes, basically. But that's all later in the journey. For now, I will just close by going back to, in the comments, I'm going to put the link down for anyone who wants to put out some support for Alec Dumaji. and his family in the tough times they're going through in their GoFundMe. I would love to share that again. If you can help out, great. If you have trouble getting onto that and you've got questions on how you can help out, please message me. I never know how many people actually see these things because it gets shared on and everything else. But I've got some pre-recorded interviews coming up later in the week. This has been the Tuesday Night Ramble. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you do watch it later and you enjoyed it, send me a message. Say, yeah, Nick, we'd like to hear more of your Chinese journey story. Or if you've heard enough and like, hey, mate, just shut up and find something else to do. Well, I'm not going to respond to you if you do that, but I'll just go, okay, someone doesn't like it. But I'm going to leave you here with a video clip that we did at Dicky Beach in Queensland that got a lot of coverage in China about supporting the people who were injured in China. Is this going to play? Maybe it won't play video from this. So this is very unprofessional, guys. Sorry. Okay, I'm going to try and upload video. I'm not giving up. I'm going to figure this out. I know that I'm an amateur at all this stuff, but hang with me. Please just hang with me, or you can go, whatever you want to do. But I'm just, I am going to try and figure this out because I want to play this video for people. So I'm going to now. Elements here. I'm going to find Nick Phillips music there. Videos. Oh, the Spirit's Eye. So I'm trying to. I thought it was in my PowerPoint presentation that I did, but obviously that's not happening. But I do have this one uploading here. So in the meantime, I'm going. Some of the interviews I'm doing over next week are going to be, you won't actually believe that I'm doing them. They're going to be very impressive. With people who are changing the music industry here in Australia, and also some people who have some of the greatest sports stories you've ever heard in Australia in your life. So stay tuned. And if you are watching this on Facebook, can I encourage you please to go to my Aussie Local and Live YouTube channel and follow me on YouTube, because eventually that's where I'm going to be going to. Okay, so what have we got going here? This is Reach Around the World, guys. Hope you enjoy it.
伤心的眼泪变成了河流，流淌在我们的心里。
我们的眼泪渗透了大地，期待深海得到平息。
让我们心连心，
手牵手，永不放弃。
全世界心心相印，传递爱的信息。
我们一定会看见不言的明天，有个未来充满着光明。 的家乡，看到孩子哭泣，悲伤充满我的情绪。
生命的意义让我们前进，坚信光明再次来临，让我们心连心，
手牵手，永不放弃。Oh, there's good time. Reach out for the sky. 我们一定会看见不远的明天，有个未来充满着光明。
全世界心心相印，传递爱的信息。
我们一定会看见不远的明天，有个未来充满着光明，未来会充满着光明。我们的声音传遍遥远天际，
你们虽然离去，却活在我心底。
我们不会忘记，
永远不忘记。世界心心相印，传递爱的信息。我们一定会看见不远的明天，有个未来充满着光明。全世界心心相印，传递爱的信息。我们一定会看见不远的明天，有个未来充满着光明，未来会充满着光明。
Just to wrap up, the night we did that, what's going on with my camera? The night we did that recording, it was so intense. Like, can you imagine a white dude, can't speak Chinese, working with major stars in China, trying to sing Chinese? It was like the mental stress was just full on. I was really exhausted. We got to the end of the session about 2 a.m. And Lin Yi had to go off. He had something happen next day. He left. But the boys working, who were the engineer, the studio staff, Stephen, who did the translation, they said, "Oh, we'll take you out for, you hungry? And we'll take you out for some food." And the guy who was translating for me, he'd left. Stephen had reasonable English, so it wasn't too bad. But they took me down to this little back alley in Guangzhou. There was a place where you had this little cafe, and clearly the cafe was so small, you had like plastic table out the front and plastic chairs, and they didn't cook the food here, obviously, but they put in their order, and that was run down the road, and we were sitting there drinking Qingzhao beers, as you did copiously, smoking cigarettes copiously back in those days. I've been off them for a long while. Smoked so much in China, I had to give up, was hurting. Anyway, they were trying to explain to me what they had ordered, and they're doing these sort of hand signals and everything else. There's some type of bird or whatever, I don't know. But what came eventually was this huge dish of turtle soup. I'd never had turtle soup in my life. But in China, you got to go with the flavor, the spices, everything else. Everything you taste will taste great. So I jumped in there. And they're sucking the shells and the bones and loving everything. And I'm kind of tentatively going into it, but thinking, this tastes pretty good, actually. I don't feel comfortable about eating turtle, but this tastes great. And it was great. It was really good. But what was so good was, even though I couldn't talk properly to the people around me, we had experienced a moment that was pretty unique. We created something that we thought we couldn't create, which we did. And actually went on to play a significant part in helping raise a lot of money for victims um, who were injured in the Shiswan earthquake. And it started a journey for me. I got a lot of press out of that. The fact that I was there from the Queensland government, that I was doing things that were helping the Chinese people. I started getting a lot of media that accidentally, I hadn't planned it, I didn't know how to do it, but got me a lot of attention, which leads on to the next 7 years of my journey in China, which I will get onto. But that's where it started, guys. That's the start of the journey. I hope that's made sense. I hope it's interesting. I've got some interviews coming up soon, local stories I hope you like. But yeah, look, this is my Tuesday rambles. I'm just going to carry on doing this stuff where I just chat. What's time now? It's after 9 o'clock. Time to top up my drink. I've got some songwriting to do tomorrow. I've got some rehearsing to do. I've got a couple of new shows. I put together a country show and an Australian show. I want to book that out to venues. This weekend, I am playing at. Where am I playing at? I know Friday night I am at Easy Times at Wollongabba. Had a great night there last Saturday night. Long story, but I had some friends around the place who heard I was playing. They come over to the restaurant, they heard me sing and said, Nick's playing. They all came down and partied on, which is great. Saturday night, I'm at North Kalanga. And Sunday the 8th, I am at... good question, actually. I'm either at the Mansfield Tavern or Metropole at Ipswich. Follow my music site, and I'll let you know. I know it's been... Wait, I'm still unsure about that. Check out the stuff for Alec Dormagee I put in the comments. Guys, love you all. If you've seen this, please send me a message. Anything you'd like me to change, any ideas on how to make my background better, anything I should be doing better, let me know. Whatever. But yeah, it is what it is. Happy days are here again. Don't stress about the crap going on in the news, okay? And follow your heart, follow what you believe in up above, which is not up above, it's actually inside you. And don't stress about the bullshit you don't need to stress about. Embrace the love that is around you. See ya.